The only fighter that can dethrone Islam Makhachev from the lightweight division throne.
Arman Tsarukyan!
Following UFC Austin and the knockout in the main event, the lightweight division has a new rising star, Arman Tsarukyan. Back in 2019, Arman was the one who gave Islam Makhachev a tough fight and was the first to take down the current dominant champ.
Oh, look at that!
In today's video, let's discuss their potential rematch, how their careers have shaped up since their first fight, their strengths and weaknesses, and what the MMA community thinks about these fighters and their possible rematch. Part 1. Arman's last fight. Arman Tsarukyan's dominant 64-second victory over Beneil Dariush at UFC Austin marked a powerful statement in the UFC lightweight division. Tsarukyan's big win over Dariush puts him as a top fighter in the UFC lightweight division. Especially wins like this, finishing in the first round, are favored by the UFC because the bosses of the organization appreciate fighters who bring excitement and spectacle to the matches. The victory against Beneil Dariush propelled the 27-year-old Armenian above several fighters within the division's top 15. Arman Tsarukyan has ascended in the rankings, now holding the 4th position in the lightweight division, trailing just behind Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, and, of course, the champion. After his win against Beneil Dariush at UFC Austin, Arman Tsarukyan is aiming for the championship. In a post-fight interview with Daniel Cormier, the Armenian-Russian fighter shared his desire for a title bout in his upcoming fight and stated,
And hopefully, next fight is going to be for the title. If not, doesn't matter. One more fight, next one, and I'm going to be a champion. Trust me, guys.
At the end of the interview, he added a message to his former opponent and the current lightweight champion.
Islam, it's a different level fighter. But we fought 4 years ago. Now I was 22 years old. Now I'm 27. So guys, I got improved, and now next fight is gonna be different one. I'm gonna knock him out. That's it.
The call out from the rising title contender and his current rank in the top 15 opens the door to talk about a potential super fight and a rematch between Arman Tsarukyan and Islam Makhachev. However, let's begin by revisiting their initial bout in 2019. Part 2. First fight against Islam. Arman Tsarukyan's fight against Islam Makhachev in April 2019 stood out as one of the Dagestani fighter's toughest challenges in the UFC. The match unfolded as an intense encounter, featuring both athletes grappling fiercely and engaging in thrilling positional exchanges. Tsarukyan entered the fight with a clear intent to grapple, securing the initial takedown against Makhachev, the first for Makhachev in the UFC.
Oh, look at that!
However, this remained his sole takedown throughout the match. Ultimately, Makhachev took charge with his wrestling prowess, securing takedowns and dictating the fight's pace. Both fighters struggled in the striking component of the fight, making it a high-level grappling match.
It's a big takedown.
Notably, Makhachev lost the 3rd round on one judge's scorecard during that bout. David Letheby scored it 10-9 in favor of Tsarukyan, whereas the other 2 judges scored it 10-9 for Makhachev. Despite this, Makhachev ultimately emerged victorious on all 3 scorecards, with the final scores reading 30-27, 30-27, and 29-28 in his favor. Both fighters were awarded an extra $50,000 each for their exceptional performance, earning the Fight of the Night honors. At just 22 years old and without prior UFC experience, Arman Tsarukyan's performance against Islam showcased his exceptional talent, making him as a future UFC star. His ability to grapple evenly with Islam and becoming the first to take him down highlighted his immense potential. This sets the stage for their potential rematch, making it even more captivating and promising in terms of entertainment value. Since then, the Armenian fighter has joined forces with American Top Team in Coconut Creek, Florida, sharpening his skills through top-tier training alongside a list of accomplished competitors. Among them are notable names such as Dustin Poirier, Edson Barboza, Bo Nicol, Thiago Santos, and the reigning flyweight champion, Alexandre Pantoja. Let's review Arman Tsarukyan's journey after his fight with the Dagestani athlete. Examining his career trajectory will shed light on why there's a possibility that Tsarukyan could be the one to defeat Islam. Part 3. The career path of Arman Tsarukyan. Arman Tsarukyan entered the world of MMA with a solid background in combat sambo and freestyle wrestling. The Armenian fighter holds a professional MMA record of 21 wins and 3 losses, with 2 of those defeats occurring in the UFC. We already talked about one of his losses that came on April 20th, 2019 against Islam Makhachev at UFC Fight Night 149. Tsarukyan earned his first UFC win 1 month after his defeat against Islam Makhachev. He quickly lined up his next fight against Arman Mercier, who had lost 2 fights after 4 consecutive wins. Arman Mercier, not as dominant as Makhachev, fought in Canada and had more UFC experience. He effectively pushed Arman Mercier against the fence and managed to control or take him to the ground multiple times during the fight. Despite excelling in wrestling and grappling, Tsarukyan has also demonstrated decent kickboxing skills, adding an intriguing element to his fighting style. This versatility makes him someone worth keeping an eye on in future matches. His win upgraded his professional MMA record to 14-2. Tsarukyan's next opponent was David Ramos, a highly skilled BJJ practitioner and a former rival of Islam Makhachev. Despite Ramos' reputation, Tsarukyan dominated the fight. He showed a superb mix of wrestling, clever striking, and ring awareness, never letting Ramos find his offensive rhythm. At just 23 years old, Tsarukyan's broad skill set suggests a promising future in the sport. He recently signed a new 4-fight contract with the UFC, securing his presence in the organization for a while. The third victim of the Armenian fighter was Matt Frivola. Arman dominated him and got the victory by the unanimous decision. Tsarukyan's next battle was scheduled against Christos Giagos. Total domination. Tsarukyan, who was already known as a high-level wrestler, showed off his striking skills in this one. Tsarukyan defeated Christos Giagos via TKO at 2 minutes 9 seconds of round 1. He popped Giagos with his left hand before unloading ruthless ground and pound prior to the stoppage. The effort would earn him a $50,000 Performance of the Night bonus. Tsarukyan establishes himself as an elite prospect. In the early stages of 2022, Arman faced Joel Alvarez. Tsarukyan secured a victory via TKO at 1:57 of round 2. He completely outclassed Alvarez, swiftly taking him down and unleashing a relentless ground and pound assault. Tsarukyan's strikes were devastating, with one precise elbow causing significant damage to Alvarez's nose, leaving him bloodied for the remainder of the fight. Despite the severe injury, the referee and ringside doctor allowed the bout to continue into round 2, where Arman ended his opponent.
Nice work. This guy's a big problem.
With this win, Tsarukyan achieved 5 consecutive victories since his UFC debut loss to Islam Makhachev in April 2019. It was another finish and another $50,000 bonus from the organization. Arman's first UFC headlining fight was at UFC Vegas 57 on June 25th against fellow lightweight prospect Mateusz Gamrot. Tsarukyan lost by unanimous decision with scores of 47-48. While not a robbery, many believe Tsarukyan deserved a better outcome. Despite entering as a favorite, none of the judges scored the fight for him. It's disappointing since he seemed ahead after the first 2 rounds, but became less effective as the fight progressed. Arman landed 110 total strikes compared to Gamrot's 108, including 95 significant strikes versus Gamrot's 81. However, Gamrot's takedown in the last 3 seconds helped him secure the win. At 25 years old, Tsarukyan can bounce back from this setback, but the loss was still disheartening. Since his last loss, Arman has secured 3 consecutive victories. He defeated Damir Ismagulov, Joaquim Silva, and notably Beneil Dariush. Arman's initial MMA loss draws attention, occurring in his second pro MMA fight back in 2015 at the MFP Eastern Rubicon event. Notably, this stands as Tsarukyan's sole knockout defeat against his 3 career losses to date, facing Alexander Believ. Tsarukyan lost via first-round KO on December 12, 2015. This was a non-title bout when he was just 19 years old and in his early stages as a professional MMA fighter. Fans have noted similarities between his defeat and current lightweight champion Islam Makhachev's sole loss against Adriano Martins in 2015. So let's compare the 2 fighters and assess their MMA skills. Part 4. Arman's chances against Islam and their strengths and weaknesses. Arman and Islam share striking similarities as fighters, excelling in grappling and refining their striking abilities. However, despite their similarities, some differences still set them apart. One significant difference between Islam and Arman is their age gap, with Arman being 5 years younger than Islam. However, this age gap doesn't necessarily equate to a clear advantage. as Islam possesses significantly more experience and is currently in his prime. Another contrast between the two fighters lies in their grappling abilities. While Arman is undeniably a fantastic grappler, Islam operates at an exceptional level. As evidenced in his fight against Oliveira, Islam showcases flawless execution of grappling and wrestling techniques perfectly adjusted for MMA. However, this doesn't guarantee complete dominance over the Armenian fighter, but I still do slightly favor Islam in this specific aspect. In terms of striking, both fighters have proven themselves as elite forces on their feet. This could potentially lead to another stand-up battle between wrestlers, reminiscent of the initial Usman vs. Colby fight. Despite Arman expressing his clear desire for a rematch, Islam doesn't envision facing him in the near future. In a recent interview, Islam shared his perspective on the matter. "It was a good knockout, to be honest," Makhachev said. After the fight, I think he said loudly that he had won the top contender fight. Well, he is approaching the title chance, I would say. He already had the chance to knock me out, but he didn't succeed. He didn't win a single round. Let him train more. He will grow up. If he will pass one more fight confidently, then the UFC leadership will give him this fight with me. While acknowledging Gaeth G as the primary contender, Makhachev admits Tsarukyan was impressive in his performance against Dariush. He admitted he was amused by Tsarukyan, predicting he would win a rematch by first-round knockout, but thinks he needs another solid showing before stepping into a title shot. Let's see what others think about the potential rematch of the two decorated wrestlers. Part 5. MMA Community. Here's what the former UFC champion and Islam Makhachev's close friend Daniel Cormier shared in his recent episode of RC and DC on ESPN.
I think should happen, I don't know if it will happen, is I believe that if Islam fights sometime in the first quarter of the year, you put Tsarukyan on UFC 300 against Dustin Poirier. Because Dustin said he wants to fight at that point. You know that UFC 300 is somewhere around April. You put him on UFC 300, and then maybe he comes back at the end of the year for that third fight that Makhachev said he wants. Now you got a guy that just beat one of the biggest names if he can get past Poirier. If he doesn't, Dustin Poirier has now laid claim to the title shot after Justin Gaethje. So it really does bring some stability to this weight class. And you know, Ryan, as often as we see guys today say stuff like, I'll wait a year if I have to, I don't care. Arman Tsarukyan said, if it's not next fight, okay, I'll fight somebody else. And if it's not after that, okay, I'll fight somebody else again. He doesn't care, bro. He will fight over and over and over until he's undeniable. And he has to get a championship opportunity.
Javier Mendez, the coach at the American Kickboxing Academy and head coach of Islam Makhachev, believes that Arman Tsarukyan deserves a UFC lightweight title opportunity, but there are people ahead of him.
And definitely because they've had history, and the fight was a very tough fight for Islam. You would think that the UFC, being the marketing machine that they are, that they're always looking for intriguing matchups. But I think honestly, there's too many people ahead of him, and I think like Justin Gaethje, Charles are ahead of him. So I think that's something that they can hold later. But I think, honestly speaking, who we're probably going to be looking at, I would imagine, would be Charles or Justin. And, Arman would be later, but I think he's going to have one more fight. And not because he has to have one more fight, because probably by the time he comes around, he's not going to want to settle and not do nothing. And
Part 6. Outro. The potential rematch between Islam and Arman is incredibly captivating, given their exceptional fighting skills and comparable dominant styles. Could we witness their reunion in the octagon? Personally, I'm hopeful, particularly considering the competitiveness of their initial bout. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss the next video.